delighted that we are doing this. I'm excited to hear your feedback about this. And the winning lesson for this week is things to consider when reading for others. And so actually the thing, Gary, that you asked for was what you need to know to read for others. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, hi, Anne. Thank you for signing up. Hi, Marion. Thank you so much. It's nice to be able to see your comments. So the 5 things to know when reading for others. I'm going to tell you, first of all, this is just my opinion. You can ask 100 different tarot readers and they're going to tell you 5 different things, right? And then I got to thinking about it and I thought, well, what do you need to know to read for others? And I'm of 2 minds about this. The first one is, if you're charging or doing it professionally or doing it like as a community service, obviously you're really going to need to know the tarot, and you're going to need to know all the parts of the tarot, and you're going to need to know lots of other things. So I decided to break this down, and I'm not talking today about what you need to know if you're reading professionally for others. So my thoughts on reading for others is that there is no better way to learn how to read the tarot than to read for somebody else. That's why I have a group called Tarot Explorers and a website called tarottogether.com, because to me, together is how we learn best. And so I'm going to suggest that you read for others whenever you can, as long as the others that you are reading for understand that you're still learning, if you are still learning. And so this is different than reading professionally, because I would have a different list. I'm going to assume that most of you aren't reading professionally or aren't interested in reading professionally, and so I'm going to assume that most of you would rather maybe know about things to consider when you're reading for others. And so that's the direction I decided to take this, and I hope that's okay with you. So things to consider when you're reading for others. All right, the first thing is self, seeker, and spreads is what I decided was thinking about. So the first thing is you need to consider yourself when you are reading for others. And the things about yourself that you want to consider when you're reading for others are, first of all, to trust yourself. Reading tarot is an exercise in trust anyway, right? We are trusting that these 78 pieces of laminated cardboard with pictures on them are going to be a tool to interface with something bigger than ourselves, right? And that we are going to get a message that has meaning. So that's a big trust right there. So I think it's very important to also trust that if somebody is paired with you for a reading, you are the right person to be reading for them in that moment. And what is coming to you intuitively is the right thing to say in that moment. So we need to take our trust of the tarot and expand it to ourselves. And so to me, part of trust is say what you see. And that means not only say what you see objectively on the card, but say what you see in relation to what the issue is at hand. So if you think it, if it feels right, you just go ahead and you say it, even though maybe it seems like it maybe doesn't make sense to you, because sometimes you might be shocked to find that even though it doesn't make sense to you and you're feeling a real niggling to say it, and you say it, the seeker is going to go, oh, that's exactly what I need to hear. You never know. So say it. The second part of considering yourself when reading is to center yourself, because the key to an effective tarot reading is mindset. And those of you who've been with me and in my classes and such before know I always quote Jane English. Dr. Jane English was a physicist, or is a physicist, who did, she studied tarot, and she did statistical analysis of card draws to find out whether they were random or not. And what she found out is they're not random. But in the control group, what she found out is the key to making them non-random is intention. And so with tarot reading, intent is absolutely everything. And my picture's in the way there, so I'll read it to you. She says that, oops, everything's the way on my keyboard here too. The deciding factor in producing the non-random results is the cards depicting powerful archetypes be chosen from an expanded state of consciousness after a period of meditation. And that is how she determined that in order to get a non-random tarot draws, you have to really focus your intent and do some meditative or centering practice before you do a reading. So that is incredibly important when you're looking at yourself, trusting yourself, centering yourself, and setting boundaries for yourself. And that means it's very important to have empathy, and we'll talk about empathy, but you also must have firm boundaries in place. No matter what method you choose to create those boundaries, that you're able to separate yourself from the seeker, the person that you're reading for, with a boundary while you're having empathy. And then when I talk about consider the seeker, then there's two things I primarily want to talk about with considering the seeker. The first is their expectations. Some people will come to a tarot reading, and like I said, now we're not talking about doing professional readings, so you're less likely to have this. Although with friends and family, you may still have this. They may never have had a tarot reading before, right? And their expectations may be set by what they've seen in the movies and on TV. Hi, Gary. Nice to see you here too. And so we want to give them some realistic expectations. So we need to know ourselves what to expect when we're giving a tarot reading, right? And so I always tell people, I'm not a fortune teller and I'm not a psychic. I am a tarot reader, and I will interpret what I see in the cards and tell you what I see in the cards. And I want to make sure they understand that, them not telling me anything about their situation to test me about how psychic I am is kind of silly, because I'm totally not psychic. Okay. Well, maybe not totally, but I think we're all psychic to some extent, but I do not claim to be a psychic when I'm tarot reading. I open to my intuition. I listen to my intuition, but I want the people that I'm reading for, if it's friends and family, I want to make sure they understand that I'm not psychic. I'm, practicing reading tarot, and I'm going to tell you what I see in the cards. So make sure that they have realistic expectations, and engage the seeker. So engaging to me means, first of all, breaking the ice. When you're reading for somebody else, one of the first things you want to do is break the ice so that they feel comfortable. For some people, it's kind of a scary occult thing to have a tarot reading, and so you want to put them at ease, break the ice. And engaging to me also means, so breaking the ice and engaging with them while you're reading. That means checking in. And so those of you who are in Tarot Explorers Club know that I usually, when I tell you about how to read or give you some guidance on reading, I always ask you to check in with the seeker. Does that make sense with you? We ask them, how do you feel about that? What do you see? There is nothing wrong with checking in with the seeker. Again, you do not need to be psychic to read the tarot. You just need to say what you see and check in with the seeker, because sometimes they will see things that maybe you missed. And a lot of times what they see is what holds the key to what they need to know about. So it's always a good idea to check in and engage. And engaging to me also means asking for feedback at the end, honest feedback at the end, and be open to that honest feedback. What did you think about the reading? What went well? What do you think went well? What do you think I could improve on? I think that's always good to learn. No matter how long you've been reading tarot, it's always a good idea to get feedback and learn, how it came across to other people. And that's how we, don't take it personally. I always think about, criticism as something you consider, and you take what resonates and feels right. And then, what doesn't resonate, then, unless you hear it from 5 different people, and then you might want to really consider it. Okay. So And then something else to consider when reading for others is spreads. Hi, Pam. Thanks for saying hi and checking in. So spreads, that means simply having some spreads at your fingertips that you're comfortable with, that you've tried out on your own, that you know work pretty well, that you can pull out when you're reading for others. Now, I'm going to tell you that there's 3 basic spreads that I think you need to have when you are going to read for others, and that's a relationship spread that works well, a decisions spread, and a general spread, or 2 or 3 general spreads. But generally, people have one general spread that they really resonate with and that works for them. Now, that being said, there is absolutely nothing wrong with making up a spread on the fly. And so a lot of times when I sit down with somebody to do a reading, I, first of all, chat with them. What is it you need to know? What is it you're wanting to know about? Tell me a little bit about, you don't have to tell me what's going on, but just tell me kind of the parts of what you want to know more about. And then you can take each of those parts and lay a card or 2 for those. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's a really good way, actually, to do a very personalized, individual, unique spread. So, things to consider when reading for others: yourself, the seeker, spreads, and ethics, empathy, and empowerment. I know that's 6, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. So, ethics. Know your ethics, your personal ethics. Take some time before you read for somebody else and think about what your ethics are as a tarot reader. And if you just Google tarot ethics, you're going to come up with loads of resources on putting together your own tarot ethics. And I'm going to share mine with you just to give you a place to begin. So my tarot ethics are that all readings are confidential unless there is an imminent threat of harm. I do not give advice, especially not medical, legal, or financial advice. I do not predict the future. A reading is a snapshot, not a prediction. Every choice has the potential to change outcomes, and either the seeker or the reader may stop the reading at any time. So my ethics are really short, very straightforward, but it helps also, it's kind of connected to that expectations. If they know my ethics, then that kind of helps set those expectations also. And I do make sure that people know what my ethics are, or I have them handy to go over them with them if I've never read them before. Now, this interesting part about not giving advice, this is kind of a CYA little part of my ethics. And that's because you don't ever want somebody to come back to you and say, well, you told me to do this and it turned out terrible, right? I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you want advice, we will ask the cards and I'm going to interpret what that might mean, but I am not giving you advice. And so I think that that's something to be aware of. We're not telling people what to do, but if they want advice, we can ask the cards to give them some suggestions, maybe. Empathy is the other part of this. And empathy, of course, means that, and I'm going to assume probably everyone here has a deep empathy, because I don't think people become tarot readers unless they have a sense of connection with other people and themselves and the bigger picture. But that, I do think, is an important part of reading for others, just making sure that we're reading with empathy. And this is possibly, I'm going to say this last one is the most important of all of them, and that is a sense of empowerment. We always, always, always want to leave the people that we are reading with a sense of feeling empowered in their lives. Too many times there have been people with stories about going to a tarot reader who gave them some kind of doom and gloom, your life is going to be terrible reading, and completely disempowered them in their lives. And that's, in my opinion, that is not only unethical, it's inexcusable, because everybody has power in their lives. And that's, I think, a huge part of our mission as tarot readers, is to help empower ourselves when we're reading for ourselves and others when we're reading for others. And so that being said, that means that our reading leaves them with a sense of hope and a sense of what they might be able to do to change their situation or to improve their situation, something proactive. I always try to leave people I read with something that they can do proactively in their lives, whether it's an affirmation statement or something to journal about, something to think about in a way that they might be able to change the situation for the better. Now, that being said, an empowering reading is not necessarily always a positive reading. I'm not a big fan of tarot decks that are all unicorns and rainbows, let's say, because you and I both know that's not real life, right? And we're living part of that right now. There's some scary, crappy, not very good, very negative stuff going on, and people deal with that in their everyday lives. We deal with that in our everyday lives, and so an empowering reading does not necessarily mean that all the parts of the reading are positive. There may be some serious, you know what, going on in this querent's, the seeker's life. And that needs to be addressed. But we don't want to leave them with, well, that's the way it is, because that's not the point of a tarot reading. The point of a tarot reading is to say, how can I make it better, right? Where can I go from here? And so we always want to leave the people that we read with a sense of being empowered. I hope that makes sense. Now, again, these are just my own personal opinions. Gary, I loved this question. It really made me think about, what do you need to know when you read for others? And really, what do you need to consider when you read for others? So I really appreciate that. I can see Anne, Marion, Gary, and Pam, because you guys went ahead and went over to eCam. I appreciate that. Do any of you have any questions? And if I'm not seeing you in those comments and you have a question, always feel free to put them under. There'll be a post and you can just put it in the post, and I will definitely go back and answer any questions if I don't see any here. Let me ask you this. Is there anything that you would add that you think I missed that we should consider when we're reading for others? I would be very interested in your feedback on that. So if you think of anything, there we go. Yes, I can post the ethics for sharing. Thanks for asking, Gary. Yes, I will post that for sharing. And if you think of anything that you would add on to that, please let us know. What else do you think we should be considering when we're reading for others? Now, I will tell you that I do not think you need to know everything there is to know about the tarot before you start reading for others. That's why I started Tarot Explorers Club. I'm glad, Anne. Thank you. Because I think the very best way to learn tarot is for reading with others. I think that that's the best way to learn tarot. And not only do you get practice in reading for tarot, you also get feedback, immediate feedback, and an expansion of insights from those that you're reading for, because you're reading for other people who are learning tarot or who already know tarot. And then you start to really make some connections that I think are almost impossible to make otherwise. And so I really do invite you, if you're not already part of Tarot Together Explorers Club, please join us. You get a whole month for free. We meet 4 times a month. We meet virtually, and we explore one card in depth each month. Right now, we're walking our way through the major arcana, and we read for each other. We have spreads. We do warm-ups. We work on really getting in touch with our intuition. So if you're interested, go to tarottogether.com and check us out. We would love to have you join us. It's really the best way to learn tarot. And I certainly hope that this was helpful. May all your life be luminous.